wildly a lot of video game news this week, huh?
Yeah.
Why?
Some stuff's happened.
I don't understand why so much this week.
I guess the game industry is trying to stay relevant relative to the political news cycle. They're like, no, don't stop looking away from us.
Maybe.
It seems like a very counterintuitive point in American history to be trying to announce anything. But yeah.
I had a friend, my friend Steve Spawn. It's a great initiative. He put together this list of a way to find disabled creators, but he tweeted it on the day of the storming of the Capitol.
Like from the Capitol steps.
Oh, no.
And he was like, can you help me out with this? And I was like, yes, but I'm going to say not today because that will be useless. They just get totally buried. It's hectic. But what do we get? We got the return of Lucas Games.
Yeah.
Which, wow.
It is time.
With the breaking of their longtime, collaborator partner, EA, and branching off into Ubisoft.
Yeah.
My assumption there is that was just a contract that sunsetted. It wasn't like they fired anybody. It was more like...
I think it was due to be up.
Yeah, like it was just...
What, did they have an exclusivity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought
they
that they just
didn't
worked
make
with them.
that many games. Like when you look at it, they did make mobile games that, we don't look at that much, but what is it? Battlefront 2, and then Fallen Order?
Yeah, but there were
And
also a lot of
Squadrons.
games that didn't come
Squadrons.
out that they were making.
That is true. Which I feel like if you're Disney, you're going to be like, we got 4 games in this period of time? Outside of mobile games again, because there are more there.
Yeah,
I mean,
look at that. They canceled as many games as they released, right? What about who did
There's the
Force Unleashed and Force Unleashed 2?
That was EA as well, I think.
Yeah, that
So
was
that was
also
EA.
EA. Yeah.
That was like 10
But that was
years
before
worth.
this particular deal.
Yeah, those were LucasArts games.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're back. It's very exciting to me.
I don't know how I feel about it.
I saw you tweet the Indiana Jones
I just
thing.
said discuss.
Yeah,
and
what does that
boy,
mean?
those comments were great.
What was the Indiana Jones thing? I missed this tweet.
I just said discuss,
clearly
and people were like...
the alarm I've set up didn't ring.
My
this time,
favorite one, and I hope this person is watching, because I want you to know it gave me a tickle, was like, hopefully you don't throw a fit over this game or people criticizing this game. And I was like... Hot take.
Oh my gosh! Did you guys see that?
What was the tweet? I missed your tweet.
Okay, so
Troy
literally just said
Catch me up.
discuss, but he retweeted.
That's right. Mike
quote-tweeted-
doesn't follow me anymore. I forgot about that.
None of us do.
I do
I
follow
have
you.
you
That was
muted.
like for 5 seconds, and I felt terrible. I don't know what happened there.
I knew where our
He
relationship
quote
was.
tweeted.
intentional. It was
It was
intentional.
basically a cinematic trailer announcing that Machine Games are making an Indiana Jones game directed by Todd Howard. And yeah, Troy's tweet just says discuss. It doesn't say anything else.
Right.
And I
no
had this
positive or negative spin on
just
it.
no,
just
no
Leave it
input
here.
at all. I had this really funny thing
Discuss.
happen yesterday. Did you guys see the sort of live action Pokemon thing?
I did not.
It's really cool. It's a really cool video.
Don't doubt that.
And I don't remember what they call it. Like it's like when people on the internet make elaborate Domino's videos. I don't know if there's a name for those. but
Like the OK
Oh,
Go, like
It's a
just
good
a
one.
lot of things falling down.
Rube Goldberg kind of stuff.
It's Rube Goldberg is the thing you mean.
They're really
How do
cool.
you know that?
I didn't know that they had a name, but of course
Austin's
they do.
just clever.
It's true. He knows a lot.
More informed, educated.
Well, there's a difference between like Rube Goldberg is more than just Domino's, though. That's when it's like
That's like
the
thing-
candle.
These are more than just Domino's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it's a really cool video. And I tweeted, well, I can't say I expected this incredibly cool video to be an announcement for a Katy Perry collaboration.
Oh, I
Because
saw
that's
that.
what it was. At the end, Katy Perry goes, electric! And it announced that it's some kind of Katy Perry collaboration. Katy Perry fans are upset. Like,
Really?
so some like upset about my tweet, but more upset at anyone who replied to my tweet in any negative way. So like I was reading through these replies and be like, oh my god, someone
Were they using like weird like abbreviations for her name that don't make any sense?
probably, but like someone told one of my followers that they hope that they choke. Because they said, okay, the tweet for this person is, not gonna lie, it's like sitting down to eat a nice plate of homemade cookies and finding out that Katy Perry baked them. Because it's this cool video.
That's a good
and
joke.
then you're like,
That's a good joke.
what does it have to do to Katy Perry? And they said, I hope you choke when you eat your cookies. This is a Katy Perry stan account. He's like,
it's not even her first game, right? She did The Sims.
She did do The Sims.
Katy Perry's been around games for a while.
And I think she likes Pokemon. It's not that it's like I have any problem with it. But I've heard about stan Twitter. But watching these people go through every single response and just harassing people.
As the guy who is always committed to dispassionate analysis, the two things that pop to mind here is, first off, what is intrinsically upsetting about discovering that your cookies had been made by Katy Perry? Do we know, are there known facts about Katy Perry's cookie
And that's, I think the important
abilities?
distinction is that nobody said it was upsetting.
But secondarily, I'm also curious about somebody, their offensive premise is sitting down alone, I gather, to eat a plate of cookies.
Yeah, that's a stretch. I don't. That doesn't.
I feel
stand
like
with me.
Yeah, I was going to say that's an ambitious. I don't think that's supposed to be a meal.
Okay, well, A, I take offense to that. And B,
who among us has not done that as a meal? What are you talking about?
And
Fair
B,
enough.
I don't think they said anything of that specific. Like, so Austin, are you in the camp of, because there's nothing offensive about Katy Perry baked cookies and that you would never eat a plate of cookies alone anyway unless there's something wrong with you that you deserve to choke on said cookies? So
I'm clearly in the pro-choking.
This is victim blaming that's going on here in a way that
Some people really like being choked. By the way,
that's a good
another
point.
thing another thing to throw in there.
We start this podcast.
That's a good point. He's not wrong.
That's true. That's going to be the animated text.
That's the
Some
text.
people really like
text. Some people like being choked.
Yeah, it was just wild.
And none of the context leading into it. Just let that sit.
I will cut absolutely everything prior. Yeah, it'll be great. No, it was just wild to see, to make such a harmless tweet, but I guess I know Katy Perry fans, and I think it's Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande all have these just fan bases that will threaten to murder anyone who maybe doesn't love the person they're a fan of.
Who dare besmirch
And we thought
thy
video
holy
games
name.
were bad. Maybe we're not so bad.
I was going to say, we've all got our toxic communities, right?
I think
there's something kind of, I don't know, it makes me feel better that we're not necessarily the worst.
It's almost as if it's a human thing.
It's all terrible. It's all terrible.
God,
my assumption with regard to accounts like that is
that they're 14.
Because the scale, the size, some of these people have, someone like Katy Perry has more followers on Instagram than there are people who live in many countries
in the world.
I think she might have the most on Twitter of anyone,
I remember that true
I'm
at one
not
point. That
sure.
was true. Years ago, I remember reading that. It was it was north of 100 million or something.
It's
I mean,
nuts.
it's so even if 0.01% of those people are these sort of fringy lunatics, it's still hundreds of thousands of people.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that I feel like I learned a while ago is if you have any kind of large audience, some percentage of them are going to have just oddities. I don't know how to phrase it. That's just some of it's gonna be weird. And Katy Perry is the third most followed on Twitter. Or really aggressive.
Who's one
or
and
just,
two?
Obama is number 1, and Justin Bieber is number 2.
Yeah.
Assuming this is up to date.
The list
Austin's
of
number
winning
3.
3 of them.
Yeah, it's
the funny thing is all of our, not that I'm contributing a hell of a lot to it, but all of us combined the total number of people that represents in terms of Twitter followers could disappear from someone like Katy Perry's, and it wouldn't even look like a rounding error.
I was gonna say it wouldn't change an integer. It wouldn't be it didn't. Nothing.
It's just
happened.
really hard for me to wrap my head around it. The thing that also strikes me about that is I love interacting with people on. This morning, just a little bit ago, I had found in the closet an old drawing I made as a kid.
I think it's strong bad with what was the ghost looking guy from He-Man that floated?
Nope. You want to know?
Orko?
A couple people figured it out finally. It's Omega Red from the X-Men. Well, from Marvel, generally speaking. But
so you found a drawing and you couldn't figure out what it was of.
No, I knew what it was. I was curious if anybody else could possibly.
Hey, fam, help me out.
There were a lot of people that were like, is this the weird love
10-year-old
child of
Austin into?
Spider-Man and Santa? And there were a lot of really good guesses. But point being is I enjoy going on there, reading these comments, chatting with people. And I realize, you guys basically have this problem already. But then once you're talking about 100 million people, it strikes me that it just becomes one direction. It is not possible
The band?
to... The
Harry
band,
Styles.
Yeah, it becomes utterly
Hope so.
unusable to read or interact because it's just the sheer number of like tens of thousands per second that would be going through.
I mean, I've seen Jen Selter, who has, I don't know, millions of followers on Instagram. She did a screen recording of turning her notifications on just to see what they look like. And it's just like so fast.
It like
that
breaks your phone.
it's nuts. Like it's so fast. I mean, the biggest problem that I have is I can't really use my mentions page because so much of it is people talking to each other and I don't have context. It's not them tweeting at me. It's conversations between people that I've been tagged in at some point that have become a discussion under something that I posted. So I'm like, I can't keep up with.
So how do you guys even? I know that it shows favoritism towards people that you follow. So I get that, but how do you ever even use these things? Because it just seems like once you cross a certain point, it becomes just noise.
I pretty often don't read any responses to my own tweets. I just look at my timeline.
Mike's and my job.
I just look at my
We're
timeline.
we're the
my
cleanup
friends.
crew.
I mean, I read YouTube comments because they're manageable. Instagram, I'll generally just see whatever's on that main page. But Twitter, I pretty often can't read replies to my own tweets. And that can be very funny because sometimes something I'll say will be completely carried away in a way that I'm like, that's not what I meant at all. Wow. And then there's this full conversation about it. And it's been quote tweeted and it's in a YouTube video. And I'm like, that was a joke. Wow. And I don't realize for 2 days. But I just kind of have to let that happen at this point. So yeah.
Small nations have gone to war in the background and
Wouldn't know. Yeah.
Well, my favorite tweet or my favorite response to the Indiana Jones, by the way, was Xbox gets their own Uncharted, but it's literally Indiana Jones. And I was like, I like that. It's fair.
Yeah, I wonder if it will
is
be
it meant to be an Xbox exclusive, or is that what just the speculation
That's
is?
speculation.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I have no idea if
yeah.
that part was even accurate, but just the idea of like, take that, Sony. It made me laugh.
Yeah, going in full reverse. Same as like people lost track of Tomb Raider being first a while ago.
Right.
Like these new Tomb Raider games are just Uncharted. Yes.
I hope the Indiana Jones game is basically an open world game where you play as what's the guy's name? I'm blanking. It's shameful. I can't remember his name. His sort of, like he speaks a dozen languages and he'll just disappear.
Oh, you're talking about Marcus?
Marcus. Yes, I hope it's an
Shia
open
LaBeouf.
world game where you play Marcus. That's what I'm pulling for.
Man, I could go into that whole thing about how much they changed his character between 1 and 3 is just to service the story. You didn't give it to Marcus, did you?
Go off.
Got
I listened
lost
to
in
that
his own
essay.
museum.
Marcus Brody. He speaks a dozen languages. You'll never find him again. He'll disappear. Excuse me. Does anyone happen to speak?
It's the best.
Was there
Does
anything
anybody here speak English?
in that?
Mr. Brody, sir.
I'll let you finish.
We just need to do a complete recreation of Last
Turning into
Crusade
the
right
trip.
here
I
and
love
now.
I love it so much.
Was there anything
I knew you
in
would
that
come.
trailer that really indicated anything gameplay-wise? I feel like it was
It's
just
just
tonal.
look what we have.
Yeah.
And the funny thing to me is that there is a whole generation of people that were not even an idea when the last movie came out that are playing
When
games
was
with playing
Crystal
games.
Skull? When was that?
That is true.
Crystal
How long ago
Skull
was
was like
Crystal Skull?
2000.
5, 6,
What was it?
something like that. 2005, 6-ish range.
So I mean, that's
Sounds about right,
15.
yeah.
People are 15 are buying games when that movie came out. So I mean,
And even
it's
then,
a
a lot of
solid
people are
20
going to
years.
and a lot of people are going to be giving you shit for even counting that as the last movie.
Myself included. I'll give myself shit. Here's some shit, Troy. Oh, I deserve that. There you go. Wow.
I'll dunk on myself first, bitch.
Yeah, bitch. But I mean, if you want to think about between Last Crusade, which canon is the last movie,
they are making another. Maybe that one can be the new last one.
I know.
I
Well,
hold
that would
out
be
hope.
why, isn't it? If they're making a new one, that would
That's
be
my feeling. And it's
timing.
going to be every time you do a movie tie-in, it just immediately becomes derivative. And I've been a part of this to where you have to serve so many masters, but this thing is like, well, you can't touch that because we're doing that in this. But okay, well then tell us this. Like, we can't tell you. I was like, well, let's try to be in step.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the movies happen faster than the game production. So game production starts way before, and then so much of the script of this. I mean, there could be casting changes. There could be all sorts of stuff that's happened by the time the movie's out.
I know that's been a major problem with some of the Star Wars games, where they'd try to put something in the game and Lucas would be like, no, or I guess Disney would be like, no, you can't do that. And they'd be like, but why? And they'd be like, movie. And they'd be like, but what specifically is the issue? They'd be like, we can't tell you. So it's just that they were kind of maybe stepping on some theme that was in The Last Jedi, but weren't allowed to know what the theme was or what it was or why they couldn't use it. They were just told, nope, can't do it, do something else. And repeatedly.
I think that's shifting. I do think that's shifting. I think, like, especially as someone who's just been through it with Wick, like, there's definitely...
Oh, that's true. Like you did this exact thing.
There's like a generation of producers coming up now who like good video games. Like I remember the very first meeting we had at Lionsgate was like, we want to make GoldenEye. Now we definitely didn't make GoldenEye with that game, but like they wanted to make a good game. They wanted to do something innovative.
That's why you're not welcome back there. They're very disappointed in you.
They were like, yeah, where's my N64?
GoldenEye. I mean, GoldenEye was during the like hiatus, the Bond hiatus.
Well, except that it's a tie-in to GoldenEye, though, right?
It was a tie-in to GoldenEye, wasn't it? Or did it come out did it come out years later? I think it came out to tie in with the...
Let's find out.
But I thought it was pretty concurrent.
But it was kind of this magical kind of... For the longest time, it was kind of the only good movie tie-in, right? Like it was...
95 is when GoldenEye came out.
Yeah.
That was when...
came out in 94, I think.
Yeah, so it was a literal tie-in. They got lucky, basically, like that, and also just amazing designers on the team. But the
well, and the legendary story for those that don't know it, where
2 years later, by the way,
where Rare was told specifically, do not include multiplayer, and they did. They just shipped it. Basically, went completely rogue and made it. Nintendo didn't really realize what was going on until it was past the point of no return. And they just fully were like, no, we believe in this, and it's like it's hilarious.
Very glad they did.
Fair play.
Yeah, I mean they
worked out.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But they.
You can pull shit like that if it works. If it doesn't, you're in trouble. But if you get away with it, it's great.
Yeah. Imagine if we lived in a universe where everybody hated the multiplayer in GoldenEye so hard that it's all they could talk about with that game. Like I feel like it could have killed Rare right then and there. Whereas
pre-Microsoft Rare is still my favorite game studio. They have made so many good games that are still fun to play because of Rare Replay. You can still go back and play them. But the fact that like a Perfect Dark multiplayer, the idea that couldn't have existed at some point, or at some point wouldn't, like they wouldn't have shipped it, is devastating to think about. I'm upset.
Yeah, and they're amazing that they are still around and still like relevant. That they're one of the few companies that have been around for that amount of time that's still, especially non-Japanese companies, that's still like very relevantly making new games. I feel I'm always, every time they come up, I just have this moment of going, damn, they're very impressive.
Yeah.
And they've also done the flip back into relevancy, which is a tough one. Like they were like, an amazing respected studio. Then they kind of became the Avatar studio for Xbox for like the longest time, and then looped back into being relevant again with a couple of great games. So it's kind of it's similar to Frontier, right? Frontier, great games in the past, then did a lot of licensed games, kind of went into that kind of, not as popular or famous with gamers, and then comes back with Elite, with Planet Coaster, and kind of builds up that reputation again. It's
Troy, was that your attempted segue into Medium?
Jesus Christ. No. Did you see that?
I did. I happened to look right at it.
What happened?
Troy's haunted. There's ghosts.
That seems fine.
My Naughty Dorg's... My Naughty Dog skateboard.
My Naughty Dorg.
My Naughty Dog skateboard.
Is that your attempt to sound Australian? Naughty Dog.
My Naughty Dog skate deck back there fell down.
Dad?
Don't understand why I did. Did you see that there, Alanah?
That is pretty scary.
It fell down all by itself.
It's pretty good.
I promise not to do this twice in a row, but since you did make a passing mention of Star Wars,
Brilliant.
I do want to own up to... I will own up to a few corrections in the comments of last week's when I said very confidently that the Battlefront 2
Dark Troopers, Stormies,
well, that
Dark
was
and Stormies.
What's in that fucking mug of yours?
Urine.
Really? Of a very intoxicated person.
Not mine. That's the weird thing.
Nor Pam's.
No.
Which would have been, you know.
Mike's having a
with-
Moscow Mule. Let's just point that out. That's interesting.
I can't lift mugs.
I'm rocking the Klingon mug.
Yeah, dude, you're going full rogue. Look at that. Like, you got the hair. I guess Silver Sable. You could like, what would you be going for right now?
Something really sad. I can't lift a mug. That's why I don't have coffee for the first time ever on this show.
Are you
Because I
drinking out of
can't
straw?
physically. Yes.
Drinking out of cups.
It's all really sad.
How are you
So
feeling?
miserable. It's pretty terrible. But I'm. So my
Straight to
knee
it.
hurts right now, but I'm no longer in
Your
tremendous
third knee?
pain. Pretty much, Jesus. It was so bad when we first unwrapped it. I was like, oh my God. I no longer hurt when still. My knee does a little bit, but my hands are fine. So
I feel like
Are
that's
you
a
looking forward
Richard
to being
Marx
one of those
lyric.
people, though, that's going to be like, the rains are coming? Because
Yeah.
your joints are all fucked up and your knees are going to be
my
little
elbows is
barometric
the
pressure
weirdest
monitors.
one. Like, still my left elbow is like I can only just yesterday I started to be able to do that on this hand, but previously I couldn't without.
Queen's wave.
Yes.
With the
Yeah,
back
No,
to
I
the
can
queen.
finally
you
get
could-
back to
you
Queen's
actually could be.
but I couldn't do that for a
Out the
while.
window.
And it's really weird because the elbows, like, you know, don't look like there's something wrong with them, but they hurt.
How is typing
I can type.
doable?
I can type, but I have to type very slowly. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can type with like I move all my fingers now. But
You need to get one of those, like a Stephen Hawking, you know, eye blink measuring for typing.
Hello, my name is Alanah Pearce. Thank
I
you
did
for
try
coming
to
to play,
use-
watch, listen.
I did try to use speech to text just once, but it does not understand my accent. Not
They don't
good.
have like an Australian translator?
The problem is that my accent has a little bit of American in it, so it's just hyper confused.
I like the idea that you say like, good day, mate, and it goes, it's like, hello,
Hello.
sir. Yeah.
But otherwise, yes, you know, it's terrible, but I'm getting better. I'll be fine. Nothing's broken.
Well,
so
that's
we're all right.
that's good.
Trying to
But,
manage
yeah, that's
infection.
swollen. I had a friend in high school who was can't remember if he was like playing basketball maybe or somehow he ended up smacking his head direct, like he headbutted, he and another kid like full on smacked each other in the head, and he took the injury like right
Ugh.
up here, and he was fine. I don't even think he had a concussion, although maybe it was pretty bad. But the funny thing was that it started swelling as like high impact zones do, and so his whole head swelled. And the crazy thing was, it's like it erased his facial features. He just became like a
A
smiley
Dick Tracy
face.
character, like
Yes,
a Dick Tracy villain.
100%. It was the most surreal thing where he came into school the next day and he was just this perfect sphere with like eyes drawn on and a mouth and like nose holes, and I was like,
You should go home.
what the fuck?
That's how they're
happened
getting rid of
here?
wrinkles these days.
This is high school, man. This is not a good place for you. You are nothing but
No
a memory
kidding.
for us to talk
you will
about
be
on the
remembered
podcast
forever.
20 years
Yeah,
later.
and spoken about on a podcast. Yeah, my knee when I first saw it, I wish I had taken a photo because it was absurd. It looked like you had taken my knee and added a baseball to the end of it. Like it was just this knee and then this
gnarly.
giant mountain of a thing. My hands are a little bit swollen, but mostly just disgusting. Trying to avoid infection, and it's
Mostly just disgusting.
pretty much. It's not good. Like this hand, I showed you guys a picture, but it has just like all this dead skin on it. It's just I'm not going to move it. And then
This
this
is our most
one
metal podcast ever, by
is
the way.
definitely healing with dirt inside of it that I
Clean it
can't
out.
get out. I can't.
Why? What do you mean?
It will not come out.
Have you tried the spray stuff?
Oh yeah. Oh, the devil. Yes. Getting sprayed with peroxide once a day.
No.
and
Don't
wanting
do
to cry.
peroxide.
I had to.
Saline, just like a saline wash.
Yeah, that's what they did when I first called the ambulance. The stud is quite stuck.
Understood.
So I think what's going to happen is that
It's just become part of you now.
apparently,
Assimilate it.
if
The Borg.
as long as
Yep.
it's no longer got any bacteria in it, which I don't think it
Star
does.
Trek reference.
Very nice. Apparently it'll look like I have a tattoo when it heals over. Very good. Very good. But back to the topic. Oh,
Go on.
All I
Trek
wanted
book.
to say before, and I'm glad that you are sufficiently, I'm very grateful that you're sufficiently injured to get over the line, at least the bare minimum. You are.
we can
you
do
are
the podcast. So
You are, yeah, in game industry terms, you are a minimum viable product
Yeah.
for this podcast. So,
You're alpha. You're alpha.
yes.
yeah, you're kind of a, yeah. But all I was going to say is I just wanted to openly acknowledge that I was
Star Wars.
corrected on a handful of counts. Apparently, I didn't even know about this. In Last Jedi, there is a very obscure Darth Revan reference.
Is that?
in, like
Oh,
one of the
KOTOR.
props? Yeah. So there's a Knights of the Old Republic reference that so that obviously predates Mandalorian considerably. I had no idea about that, and I'm a pretty huge Knights of the Old Republic nerd. I fucking love that game. And but yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say there was fruitful education in the comments on the last episode.
I was wrong about why I like Gyarados. And I was like, it's fine. I just know that I like the stats when I play it. So whatever. But similarly, like they were like, you're super wrong about that. And I was like, that's fair. So, for favorite Pokemon across the board, I was like, yeah, I screwed that up. My bad. Whatever. We make mistakes and we learn from them. But when Austin does it, it's embarrassing because he claims that he is the #1 Star Wars fan. So
Yeah.
I mean, I have a box of the action figures.
you do. It is really cool.
They don't just give that away. You have to pay
Buy it.
sometimes $5. So
Austin, how would you feel if you got to work on one of these Lucas Star Wars games? Would that be like a thing that you would love to do, or is that something that's like you don't
State
want
your claim now.
it's
or
funny.
is it too close to home, or do you not
Years
want to be a part of it?
ago, well, it's actually not about the too close to home. So like I've gone through phases of this question because initially it was like, just as a fanboy, it was like, that's the ultimate dream. Like you don't think about any practical realities of a thing like that. You just think, I'd be assimilated into this magical thing and become part of it. And it's like, I would be one of the red blood cells. That is,
You would be the dirt in Alanah's hand.
I would be the dirt in Alanah's hand of the Star Wars. Like I would be of equal value relative to the whole IP, but still inarguably a part of it. No, and so it's like, but then I remember when EA started looking for a composer on one of those games, they reached out to my agency just in a broad way to say, are there any of your clients that we should be looking at? They ended up, of course, hiring Gordy Hab, who did
Famously.
Famously,
I mean, Gordy has
taught
done
in schools. Yeah.
I think Gordy has his work on both Battlefront games and on Fallen Order. He's become the de facto
Amazing.
Star Wars composer. I actually find his music, despite the fact that it is overtly like, you must sort of, the way they describe it is write the John Williams B-sides. Like it must sound as if John Williams wrote this, but we've just somehow never heard these cues. And in that way, I actually find that he has out-Williamsed. He's out-Williamsed Williams. Because if you listen to his Star Wars cues compared with the sequel scores, I find Gordy's more interesting. I actually think he's writing Star Wars more interestingly than John Williams at this point, to my taste. Now, that changes once you go to the, like Empire Strikes Back and, but the recent ones where it feels like John Williams has kind of said all he has to say. And it's very,
Shots
very
fired,
good work.
man.
I'm not saying that it's bad work by any stretch, but I just feel like he's at some point you cross a threshold. Of course, Gordy himself has written, I think he said the other day, he tabulated, he's written 35 hours of Star Wars music at this point. Because he also worked on, the Old Republic and Connect Star Wars. He's been doing it for a while.
Did he write the solo song?
He did not.
Connect
No,
It?
but I
Jason
have
Derulo
seen him.
himself.
Ironically, the solo song was a duet.
Yeah.
I've seen him publicly say he feels bad for that guy because that guy came and did a job exactly as spec'd and
As
just
told- as
took a
instructed,
mountain
yeah.
of shit
Look,
for
it's
it.
perfect. It's just terrible at the same
Yeah,
time.
exactly. So the long
The
and short of it
perfect
is,
execution of that idea.
Yes.
when they were looking for somebody, I remember when it was clear that they were expressly looking for somebody who could kind of do John Williams' aesthetic so perfectly to almost be indifferentiable from John Williams. I didn't even submit a reel because I thought I've actually reached a point in my career where that's not interesting to me. Now, to Gordy's credit, Gordy has managed to parlay that into amazing things. Initially, when he got the job, I thought I don't envy that because he basically is having to be someone he's not. Like Gordy is his own composer and very capable. If you listen to his score to Halo Wars 2, you can hear him doing Gordy and not John Williams, and you're like, oh, there's a real composer there. And so even on Fallen Order, I feel like I could hear that. I could hear him channeling Williams. He and Stephen Barton, who co-composed
I really
it.
liked that score.
It's very good. I mean, and they went all in. I mean, that's all done of the same production quality as the movies, like all Abbey Road, London Symphony. It's as extravagant as is possible. Point being, I initially thought, no, I'm even if it narrows my opportunities, I think I'm happier being Austin than the quote John Williams, because I don't want to even try that. But I've modified my opinion because I also underestimated that Star Wars would eventually realize it has to grow and expand. And between what John Powell did on Solo, which I think is despite how messy that movie is, the score is unbelievable. And then, of course, as we spoke at length last time, what Ludwig has done on Mandalorian, Star Wars has finally reached a point where it seems like it's actually excited to kind of branch out. And it has before, all credit where it's due. Jesse Harlan, what was the game? Republic Commando? Jesse has definitely, in many years ago, he was the staff composer at LucasArts before they folded. He was pushing that boundary. But those were, those didn't quite take off in the way that Mandalorian obviously. Mandalorian is thoroughly mainstream, and despite its iffiness, so was Solo. So I finally feel like now, if something like that came along, I would absolutely jump at the chance, because I feel like they're not just looking for. Give us basically John Williams just rehashed. And that's very exciting to me.
Yeah. I can understand why you would find that extremely creatively limiting. That's literally what they're doing. Is like, just sound like this guy.
Yeah, like not just this guy, like arguably the greatest composer of all time.
Fair.
Probably the most heard, most listened to he's one of the few composers that has an audience of billions.
That is true.
You're dodging the uncanny valley a bit, aren't you, there as well? Like, people have such an expectation
good way to put
of
it.
that soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. To be
For a jazz pianist. That's what's so funny.
He is a remarkably excellent jazz pianist. That is also true.
Yeah, I remember there was, you may be correct, or you could probably correct me on this, but I remember him saying that the score for Catch Me If You Can, he felt was the first score where he was like returning to his roots, because he was Henry Mancini's pianist, is that right?
Mm-hmm. And he was also the go-to of, if we can't afford Hank, go hire Johnny. Like, a lot of his early pre-Star Wars scores were cheesy romantic comedies where they wanted to be making Breakfast at Tiffany's and hiring Henry Mancini, but they couldn't afford either of those things. So they hired, it's like How to Marry a Millionaire, A Guide for the Married Man with Walter Matthau with music by young Johnny Williams. That clearly they wanted the Mancini vibe. So yeah, Williams returning to that form. Interestingly, though, what would you guess? There's one score that Williams singles out as what he says is the most him. Like, when he talks about Star Wars, he speaks as a craftsman who's like, look, I put on that hat. I do the job for the little kids movie for them to enjoy on a popcorn Saturday afternoon. But the real me is X score.
Huh.
Yeah,
so even he feels that way.
What did you say, Mike?
I said Paw Patrol. I reckon it was Paw Patrol.
I would guess, this is probably just a cheesy one, I would guess either Close Encounters or E.T.
You nailed it. It's Close Encounters.
Boom! Chick, right out of the gate. Are you serious?
Yep. It's funny because that score is, other than the fact that everybody knows everybody knows that, but that's actually the only
That's the wrong last note.
I know. Get over it.
Troy is killing it. He's got two in a row.
He drank both his and Alana's coffee this morning, so he's just all wine. Yeah, no, Close Encounters that score is overwhelmingly like borderline 12-tone music, very dissonant, very non-melodic, no memorable tunes really, until the very last cue in the very last scene of the movie. It's like atmospheric orchestra, slithering. And it's funny to me that Williams goes, yep, that's the real John Williams right there. Basically a mid 20th century modernist composer with no interest in melody and no interest in anything but kind of texture and form. Which is funny because he's just like, his brand is,
and he's so famous
as the
for
most
Star Wars.
memorable melody guy of all time. Exactly.
Yeah, that's super.
It's not just Star Wars. I mean, it's like Indiana Jones and Harry Potter and Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. The number of melodies he's written that are part of our collective cultural conscience is so massive, so far beyond any other composer. And yet, in his mind, it's like, well, you sit down and you fiddle with the notes until they're right, and then you send it off to the director and you move on with your life. But if you listen to all of it, he's written a lot of modern classical music. That's him, just like he wrote a cello concerto for Yo-Yo Ma. Very, very. There's no melodic content like his movies in these pieces at all. It's fascinating.
Fun fact: did you know that there's a cameo? So, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a system that was developed by an astronomer, Alan Hynek. And they have him. He was the guy that was a part of like Project Paperclip. That was the government's response to going and investigating all of these UFO conspiracy theories. And he was in charge of debunking that. And they do a show right now on History or whatever about it. And the guy who played Littlefinger, I can't remember his name right now, an Irish actor.
I know from Game of Thrones, you mean?
For Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Plays Hynek. But I didn't realize there's an episode of that show, Project Paperclip, where he's on set of Close Encounters. And I was like, what is like, they actually had that Professor Hynek was there on set for Close Encounters because Spielberg was like, this guy deserves to be here. And so he's like an extra. The actual guy who created that system is on set.
I love little things like that. Neil deGrasse Tyson told a story at the premiere of Contact. He was invited, and there's a scene in that where Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey first meet, and they're standing at the now deceased Arecibo Radio Observatory. Horrible story there, but there's a scene where they're sitting there, kind of having their little random, romantic getting to know each other scene, and she says, there's so many billions of stars. There's so many billions of galaxies. And if even just 1 in a million of those galaxies had stars, of which 1 in a million had planets, of which 1 in a million had life on them, there'd be life everywhere in the universe. Well, that's a reference to what's called the Drake equation by Francis Drake.
Oh, I thought it was the artist Drake.
Yes, exactly.
Famously.
It was some of his earlier work before he shifted over into hip hop. So they said the Drake equation, except she has it wildly wrong. It's not 1 within a million, within a million, within a million. She's off by an order of magnitude. It was if 1 in 1,000 and then 1 in 1,000 and then 1 in 1,000.
You should tweet her about it.
Well, the funny thing is that
She cares about it.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is at the premiere, and so is Frank Drake. And he's sitting there losing his shit the whole time going, they're getting your equation wrong. They're getting your equation. And he comes up to him after the premiere and apparently was like, didn't that drive you crazy? And he was like, Neil, it's a movie. And just put him in his place.
I feel like you could say that to most things that Neil deGrasse Tyson gets.
Did I tell you about my interaction with him at New York Comic Con?
No.
This is right after Gravity had come out.
Well, that was
And
his big
so-
viral tweet.
Yeah, so we're in the they are about to do the panel for Cosmos, and he's there with Sagan's wife, and I was just like, I just want to shake your hand. You're like, what your husband contributed to science, what he contributed to me and my search for curiosity and
He's
his
one of
fascination.
My favorite people.
One of my favorite, one of the best humans that's ever lived.
Yeah.
And so Tyson's sitting there and he's eating hot dogs.
Multiple.
And
How many?
Multiple-
At once? At the same
multiple,
time?
I mean, the guy I'm sure was doing press.
As a
press, and they
folio,
were
he
just
just
like,
opens up and stacked in there.
So
It's
he's
like a
sitting there.
cigar box.
And I said, and so we have this great interaction, and I was like, I have a question, man. And he goes, sure. And I was like, did you even like the movie? He was like, here we go. And he just instantly, and he was like, look, he was like, obviously, if they're going to create a movie that's about my specific field, I'm going to have to comment. He's like, I mean, if they did a movie about, your profession, what would you do? I was like
that.
you mean every movie? it's always actors. I was like, people comment on it all the time. I was like, but that doesn't mean that you can't. I was like, it had nothing to do with space. I was like, here's this beautiful poem about a woman struggling with the death of her child. And she feels that she's adrift. And I was like, there's nothing but metaphor and allegory the entire time. It has nothing to do with space. I was like, she's not even in space, man. This is a whole metaphor.
I
was
get
like,
why
well-
he commented on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I
I think-
understand.
Yeah, same. I think approaching it as teachable moment while acknowledging that it's still fundamentally not about those things. I think what makes him take notice is when a film looks like they're going out of their way to be realistic and then they mess up some fundamentals. There's a difference between if you are, like The Matrix and you're everything about your starting premise is like, there's nothing about this that is attempting to be grounded in realism. That's why
Looper was great. Like Looper, if you watch the Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis, they just go time travel. And they're like, well, time travel. We go in the thing, we come out the thing, it's done. It's like just time travel. But I don't think that movie set out to be like, here is what it's like to travel in space. The movie squarely states its thesis. George Clooney asks, what are you thinking about? Like, what do you think about right now? And she talks about how the sound of the radio comforts her because that's what she would do. And she's clearly grieving the loss of her daughter. And this is all just like a dream. All of it. So she splashes
you read
back
it as
down
literally like a dream sequence. Like you read it as
none of it's real. She's not an astronaut. She's not in space.
Huh. Okay.
I think
think so?
Alejandro Cuarón or whatever was doing a beautiful poem in the form of a narrative theatrical piece about a mother struggling with the death of her daughter. And even so, like when she comes back down, she's barefoot and it's the first time she's on firm ground and she stands up on her own 2 feet. They don't pull her out. She stands up on her own. It's like all of this is poetic.
Yeah, but
George Clooney doesn't exist in her mind.
Real. She could still be an astronaut and go on a
It can be, but it doesn't.
journey.
There's not a necessitation that it must be accurate.
Yeah, for sure.
If you are stating something that this is like Interstellar to me was more like, hey, we're not talking about like we're going to deal with some themes and stuff, but this is what would it look like if we traveled to a different solar system.
Well, yeah, Interstellar was also a Kip Thorne paper that was optioned. Like that was the basis of that script was literally optioning the rights to a physics paper.
Then do that.
Wow.
Neil deGrasse
and he
Tyson
created
could go crazy
some as
over
well,
that.
right? With the render tech they ended up building
It's the coolest
to get the
story.
black hole. Yeah. Well, go on. You tell it. You'll tell it better.
Well, I don't remember the specifics too deeply, but that they basically, because they were able to apply Hollywood blockbuster scale resources at creating a simulation, that they were actually able to write one or several research papers about black holes based on what was learned from those simulations, just purely to make the visual effect in the movie.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I got to go on I was on a panel with the head of the VFX studio that did that, and it was just fascinating hearing him talk like the crazy kind of the fact that it moved on the science as well. Like the existence of that movie has improved our understanding of black holes. That's incredible.
Bringing it back to
cool.
Star Wars, I didn't realize what TIE Fighter stood for.
Really?
For like the longest time. That was like a few years back.
Because they look like bow ties.
Yes.
Twin ion engine.
Twin ion engine.
Twin ion engine. Okay.
That's what TIE
And
Fighter.
the ironic thing about
That feels
is,
like something that someone came up with like 20 years later for a back of a toy
Comic
box,
book.
right?
Maybe.
I was once on a plane next to a guy who worked for JPL, and he said, I said, what do you do? And he goes, I'm actually working on ion engine tech. And I was like, I hope you weren't planning on reading or something, because the next 2 hours are going to be asking you questions. And
I just kind of want to eat my food and
he's
just
like,
kind of
"Look,
listen
bro."
to
He's
this.
like,
Too bad.
He kind of he was banking on the idea of saying like I'm a JPL scientist would make someone go like yoink, good night.
Oh, no.
And but yeah,
Do you do that? So that's my question to the group. Like, I actively will make my job sound less interesting to avoid a conversation if I'm tired. Like, I will say if I'm like on a plane and like someone's trying up conversation, I will always say I'm a programmer. Like, and they immediately just will leave me alone.
I don't tell people that I work in games no matter what, because if I do, it is a conversational shift. It becomes completely inorganic. There's never a, oh, cool, what's that like? It's, you work in games? Do you like video games? How long have you played video games for? What kind of games? It becomes like very
they start testing
interrogatory.
you.
Yeah, it's never a good time. Never. So I usually say I'm a journalist,
Sucks.
which I guess I was, but I still say that. And so be like, I'm a journalist. And then I say tech because they get bored. Tech, what kind of journalst? Tech.
I have said before I'm a musician.
Exactly.
In the spirit of trying to, but I actually have a very hard out in a few minutes, so I'll have to leave you guys early.
I tell people that I just got out of prison. This is my first flight.
And you were in
You're
prison for hijacking a
For
plane.
something across.
I'm
from-
the
Super
air
nervous.
marshal. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna want to strike again. Who knows?
That's true. You should get a bunch of like rub-on tattoos put them on your face. For every flight, just to kind of keep
I start rocking back and forth.
riff-raff.
Go, but I'm feeling much better now. I'm feeling much better now.
Austin, before we lose you, I was gonna ask if you have any closing thoughts on the Lucas Games thing.
Let's bring it on. Bring it on. I my closing thought was going to be about ion engines because the thing I
I'll take
learned
that.
from my JPL
Do it.
my JPL friend that day taught me that the thing that's interesting about ion engines is that they're a very efficient way to go long distance in space, but the reason why it's hilariously doesn't make sense, at least with my understanding, for like a dogfighting fighter craft is because they're very, very slow acceleration. That's their whole thing. They're very low energy expense.
It's like a
but
cumulative.
it's like it's all about if you want to be going, like a few
Long
100
distance.
million miles in a straight line. It's a pretty efficient way to travel, but you also have to start slowing down way in advance as well. Like they're the opposite of what a TIE fighter is theoretically supposed to be.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get a good turning circle in that.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, very highly maneuverable, blah blah blah. Anyway, I'm excited. LucasArts was my childhood.
That's why
Epicenter
I
of
asked
gaming,
you specifically. Like, I know that you love those games.
Yeah, and
But
it was
I
both,
like that your answer is, let me tell you about ion engines.
well, probably because I learned that from LucasArts games. But it's true. I'm stoked. I mean, to me, it's like I feel the same way as when Disney bought Lucasfilm, and it was like, look, they're going to start producing massive piles of content. A lot of it's probably going to be mediocre, but if every now and again there's a real diamond that comes out of that, to me, that's exciting because I prefer that over the once every 20 years, there's this cultural moment that puts so much pressure that if you get it wrong, now, George Lucas gets death threats. It's like, no, I just didn't like the Mandalorian, but I like the Bad Batch, or I like the Ahsoka show, or I
do like this landscape of picking and choosing which of the Star Wars things you want to buy into.
Yeah, that's way more healthy for me. And it also emboldens people to take bigger risks because it's now the future of Star Wars doesn't depend on your thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not holding it all on your shoulders. At
Yeah,
one
that's
time.
exciting. That's why I likened it to James Bond, where I said there's a kind of a continuous trickle, and it also periodically just reboots. Like there's a new Bond, none of the characters carry over, nothing matters anymore. And I was like, if Star Wars kind of got to that, they never will.
Got a new game coming too. What is it, Ion, I think?
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Hitman's next week, right? I've taken
Yeah.
the day off work.
I'm pretty
So
excited about that.
Hitman.
I'm really bad at those games, but I really enjoy them.
I haven't played a Hitman game in years.
It's so fun.
Oh, you have to check in on where
All
they're
right,
at.
yeah, before the Nun one, like I did, that kind of dates
Yeah,
it.
the nun
Oh
incident.
yeah, okay. You've
It's before
sat,
the nunnery.
you've sat out the worst Hitman games. You need to jump back in now. Those games were incredible.
Yeah.
All right.
Austin, I think we have to let you go.
Yeah,
I have to let me go too.
Okay, we should just
gonna be me and
wrap
Alanah.
then, I guess. I am in
Yeah.
physical pain, so...
But before
knee
you
does
do,
hurt.
you should probably introduce us.
Yes, hi everyone, welcome to Play, Watch, Listen. Sorry about this short episode. I'm Alanah. I can't use my hands.
You can kind of do this.
That's Troy Baker. And then that's Mike Bithell. And then that's Austin Wintory. Nailed it. Look
got
at
it
me. Flexible.
Solid.
Going
Solid.
great. I think I'll be all right next week. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm going to title this, as is the issue every time. But I guess
Austin
we'll find
nerds out.
I guess Star Wars
Yeah.
again.
Star Wars again.
I think
That's
next
not a
week
good
I'm just
title.
not going to talk. I think I'll just.
How dare
I
you,
feel
sir.
guilty.
Nah, I'm into it. Keep talking.
I want to talk about that Medium thing that you sent us next week. I
Yeah.
haven't seen a live
2
action
weeks later.
trailer in a while.
Yeah. Excited about that game too. That's soon as well. But I don't know why January is why they've just announced all this stuff, and then there are like 3 games. There's also the Five Nights at Freddy's collection is fully
I
come to
guess
console.
everybody was like, the election's in November. The world will be calm by the time of January.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah,
Everyone will
let's
be
just
over that
announce
by
all our
then.
shit in January. Yeah.
It's very strange. I'd be interested to find out, but I guess we'll talk about it potentially next week.
Yay. Bye.